elated that we are able to invite two very important guests for this week because it has been running for so many time now that our West Philippine Sea has been under intense situation brought about by the continuing uh, overlapping maritime claims with China on the South China Sea, which we call on our part the West Philippine Sea. Today, before we even started this morning's Kapihan sa Manila Bay, there are a lot of news online that China has reminded about the military drills taking place now in South China Sea that started yesterday and up to now. And way long that there was also a Chinese announcement that they were going to implement or enforce their own monitoring of they claim as transgressor or those trespassing in the South China Sea, which they insist as their own jurisdiction. Anyway, without further ado, we have the experts, the genuine experts to talk about the West Philippine issue matters that we are going to tackle today. And we have invited no less than the retired Chief Justice of the Supreme Court who has advocated through these years our West Philippine Sea. He needs no further introduction because he has always been in the news. Chief Justice Antonio Carpio. Good morning, sir. And beside him is the official spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea on the Philippine Coast Guard, Commodore Tarriela. Good morning, gentlemen. We'll start off our discussions with usual opening remarks from our respective guests. Justice Carpio, please.
Thank you, Marichu. You've just promoted me.
Because you
Just
are...
call me Justice Carpio. That's magandang umaga sa inyo lahat. Thank you for inviting me here together with Commodore Tarriela. We're happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Gaya po ng sinabi ni Justice Carpio, I would like to thank Ma'am Marichu at kayo po na pumunta dito. And we will respond to your questions. Abot po ng aming makakaya. Huwag niyo po kami masyadong pahirapan ni Justice Carpio.
We'll start off our conversations with Justice Carpio because recently we had conversations a few days back and he reminded me about the Philippine government's plans to file the extended continental shelf claims of the Philippines. And his group, the group Sambayan, is soon coming out with a statement on that. Justice, please enlighten us.
Yeah, thank you, Marichu. That's very important. The basis of what I'm saying is this. China has the largest navy in the world, the largest Coast Guard in the world, the largest standing army in the world, the largest submarine force in the world. So we do not fight China in the sea. We have to bring the dispute to a forum where we cannot lose, where we can win. Because in the South China Sea, if we fight China in the South China Sea, we can never win, we can only lose. So, before, when China seized Scarborough Shoal, we did not send our Marines to retake Scarborough Shoal. We sent our lawyers to The Hague to strike down the 9-dash line, which is the basis of China's claim to almost the entire South China Sea. So, on June 17, the Chinese attacked us with bolos, with knives, with spears. We were unarmed. We had firearms there, but of course, our soldiers were under instruction not to fire. So even if they were bullied, they did not use their firearms. But I said, let's bring the dispute to a forum where we cannot lose. And that forum is an UNCLOS tribunal, where warships, warplanes, nuclear bombs do not count, where the dispute will be resolved only in accordance with the facts and the law. And the facts and the law are on our side. So, okay, the Chinese were barbaric in attacking us with machetes, with spears. Let's bring them to an arbitral tribunal. And fortunately, after we filed our extended continental shelf claim in the off the Spratlys area of the western coast of Palawan, China protested before the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. And because of that protest, the UN Commission will not act until the parties negotiate or arbitrate. Of course, if we negotiate with China, China will always say, there's nothing to discuss because we own the South China Sea since 2,000 years ago. So let us bring China to arbitration. And in that arbitration, we cannot lose. China cannot win because China is claiming a maritime area that is more than 350 nautical miles from the coast of Hainan. Under UNCLOS, you can claim only a maximum of maritime zone of 350 nautical miles, 12 nautical miles territorial sea, up to 200 nautical miles EZ, and the maximum is 350 nautical miles. Additional 150 nautical miles of extended continental shelf. That's already the maximum. What is in dispute now in the what we're claiming in the extended continental shelf claim is more than 350 nautical miles from Hainan. There is no way China can win because they're just too far away. They will raise again the 9-dash line, but that has been struck down, so they don't have any basis at all. So let us bring China to that forum. Let us not dilly-dally. Let's bring China to an UNCLOS tribunal because what China fears most is another arbitration case. Wu Shikon is the guru of the 9-dash line. He was the one who convinced the Chinese leadership to claim not only the islands within the 9, now 10-dash line, but all the waters, all the resources, living and non-living resources within the. He said, China must stop the Philippines from filing another arbitration case. They are in dread of another arbitration case because they can never win. So let's bring China to a forum where China can never win, where we can never lose. Thank you.
So, sir, as you said, we have already filed the extended continental shelf, but China protested and UN asked this to go to arbitration. Who will then become the arbitrator here?
Well, just like in the first arbitration, we will file our statement of claim with the president of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. We give a copy to the Chinese embassy here, and after that, the president of the ITLOS will inform China, you are entitled to choose one arbiter. The Philippines will choose one, and the president of ITLOS will choose the 3. If China does not choose anyone, the president of the ITLOS will choose for China. So that's how it will start.
So right now, has not started even if China protested?
No, it has not started. We started by filing a statement of claim with the president of ITLOS and giving a copy to the Chinese embassy here in Manila.
So the Philippine government has not filed that claim yet?
Has not filed a statement of claim for purposes of arbitration.
So that has not happened yet?
Yeah, we filed our claim for purposes of the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf.
Okay. So the process has started, and the next step must now be initiated by the DFA, and that is now your call for the DFA.
Yes. Because if you file a extended continental shelf claim, if there is no opposition, the UN Commission will award it to you. That is what happened in Benham Rice. There was no opposition. But if there is an opposition, everything stops. The UN Commission will not act and will allow the parties, the claimant and the oppositor, to negotiate or to bring it to arbitration. Otherwise, nothing will happen.
So, at this point, have you officially made the letter of sambayan for that, the DFA to start, not dili-dali, as you said earlier?
Well, I have publicly stated it in several fora, so I am reiterating it. I recommend that the Philippines file an arbitration case against China over the extended continental shelf claim that we filed on the west coast of Palawan, to which China officially protested. Let's do the next step. Otherwise, nothing will happen until we die. Nothing will happen forever. So the next step is ours. We have to file an arbitration case. We can, of course, before you file the arbitration, you first notify China that let's sit down. China, of course, will sit down and say, there's nothing to discuss, we own the South China Sea. That will now allow us to proceed, because under the UNCLOS rules, you must at least consult the other side to give it a last chance, whether it can be settled amicably or not before you proceed to arbitration. But that's just a technicality. That's formality on it. Thank you.
From your official sources, I'm sure you have still official contacts. The Philippines and China recently had its bilateral consultative meeting. Has this been raised already to the China side?
I'm not aware of that. I don't think it has been raised because this is a separate matter. But my plea, my request is that we proceed to the next step. Let's bring an action against China before an UNCLOS tribunal, because if we do nothing, nothing will happen, because the UN Commission will not act until both sides agree voluntarily or by arbitration.
What do you think is keeping the DPA from taking that first step?
Well, it just happened recently.
Okay.
We just filed and we just got the protest of China, so we should do the next step.
Yes.
Thank you.
Last point before I go to Commodore General. Because yesterday you issued a statement as a group, the former UP alumnus issued a statement on POGO, an open letter to President Marcos. Will you do the same thing? An open letter for President Marcos to at least order the National Task Force on West Philippine Sea to really start the ball rolling?
Yes, we're prepared to do that if nothing happens.
Okay. Commodore Tarriela, the headline today, in fact, in our Philippine Star, announced that there have been a notable decrease in absolute terms on the presence of Coast Guard, Chinese Coast Guard ships in West Philippine Sea. And I know for a fact you have your own ship watching in particular, the Ayungin Shoal. Can you update us, sir, on this matter?
Thank you, ma'am, thank you for inviting us, and also for giving us the opportunity to discuss the presence of the Chinese Coast Guard that were reported by different media outlets in the past days. No? We have monitored 2 China Coast Guard vessels. Of course, the first one is the China Coast Guard vessel 5901, which we have reported since last week, that we monitored the presence of this China Coast Guard monster ship inside Iscoda Shoal, anchored at a distance around 600 yards away from BRP Teresa Magbanua. So I would like to confirm that as of 7:30 in the morning, the last image that I got from our Coast Guard personnel from 9701, the China Coast Guard monster ship remains to be inside the Iscoda Shoal. It never departed and still anchored there.
And
The second,
Escoda shows within our 200.
yes, Iscoda Shoal is within the exclusive economic zone of our country. It's only like 115 nautical miles. So it's very near, no? And then the second China Coast Guard vessel that we have monitored is the China Coast Guard 5303. Apparently, it was reported that it came close to Lubang Island at a distance of 16 nautical miles. So that is also true. I would like to confirm that the China Coast Guard vessel was monitored in that area in Lubang Island in Occidental Mindoro. However, since last night, we also tracked its movement that it's now moving away towards Palawan. So it's no longer there in Lubang Island. And I would also like to add that in response to the incursive presence of the Chinese Coast Guard in Lubang Island, the Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard, Admiral Ronnie Hilgavan, has also deployed the BRP Melchora Aquino, the sister ship of Teresa Magbanwa. That is 97-meter as well. So right now, we are only closely monitoring the China Coast Guard 5901, which I would like to emphasize once again, it's still inside Escudero.
Okay, sir. But have been reduced to just monitoring them?
Well, it's not just we are monitoring them. No? As I said, 9701 remains to be inside Escudero for more than 3 months now. While we monitor them, we also periodically challenge them over the radio, calling them out and telling them that they are within our exclusive economic zone and that they have to tell us what is their intention of their deployment within our exclusive economic zone. The same thing with the 5303, the 9702 did the same thing. We show the flag by deploying our vessel, and then at the same time, see to it that they are going to depart in the area of Occidental Mindoro.
As I told you earlier off cam, the Chinese embassy or the Beijing announced that they're conducting military drills July 16, 17. Have you been appraised of that? And they are ready to enforce their maritime laws if anyone enters into the Chinese military drills, ongoing Chinese military drills.
Well,
Maritime yun, ah?
even before that announcement of that military drill, as I said, I think it was 2 months ago when we did the marine scientific research led by the University of the Philippines in Escudero. They have been already conducting amphibious drill within Escudero. So it's immaterial on our part, no? Kasi whether they ask permission or they inform us, they have been doing those kind of military operations even before.
But are they accosting Filipino and other foreign vessels while they're doing their military drills? Have you been apprised of that?
When we were in Escudero, they are doing radio broadcasts,
Okay.
informing all the Coast Guard, all the vessels passing through the area, that there will be a military drill that they're going to conduct. But again, it is necessary for them to at least give us diplomatic courtesy that they are going to conduct such military operations. But as far as the DFA is concerned, or the NTFWPS, we haven't received any formal request on their part.
And I think they have the same argument. Why should we notify you? That's ours.
Well, precisely the point. That's why the national government is also going against those activities that they are conducting in the West Philippines.
By calling them out on radio. That's all we can do for now.
There are different ways that NTFWPS is doing for us to assert our position in the West Philippine Sea. The mere fact that the Department of Foreign Affairs is also filing diplomatic protests and different types of diplomatic action, these are the things that we are doing, and not just purely radio challenges.
Yeah. Can I just get your feedback on what Justice Carpio has said about starting the process now on the extended continental shelf for the DFA, for the Philippine government, to bring China to the arbitral forum as the best forum and not through armed conflict?
Well, first of all, our President Bongbong Marcos, has always been mentioning this, that armed conflict is not the ultimate solution that we want to have in the West Philippine Sea. We still want to have a peaceful settlement of our issue with the People's Republic of China. That's why we have still open diplomatic channel and even sit down with them, just like the BCM that was conducted a few weeks ago. So there are different ways, and armed conflict is not one of them. It's also not true that as we assert our position, eventually there will be a war against China, as always been mentioned by a lot of pro-China trolls in the social media. No? But that's not the ultimate goal of this administration. Again, there are different ways that we are asserting our position in the West Philippine Sea. With regard to the filing of the arbitral case, as discussed by Justice Carpio, I'm not a legal luminary to counter the statement of Justice Carpio, but I believe the Department of Justice, the Office of Solicitor General, and the DFA are also looking into this possibility.
Just last point before I turn again to Justice Carpio. What is the latest on that Filipino fisherman who got still missing with his brother? His brother had survived, but they were hit by a confirmed Chinese vessel. And I think the Coast Guard rescued the brother, the survivor.
Well, I'm sorry, ma'am. With regard to maritime incident,
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
the spokesperson for the Coast Guard.
May delineation pala kayo doon. Anyway, Justice Carpio, Commodore J. Tarriela, you mentioned about the DAJ, Solgen are also doing their task. And the DFA in particular have been sending hundreds of diplomatic protests. Is that, and you are now suggesting that we go to the arbitral. Given that experience, is it still the best option, sir?
Yes. First of all, notes verbal diplomatic protests are important
Yes.
because if you don't protest under international law, you
Yeah.
acquiesce, you
Okay.
impliedly consent. So just to register publicly, officially,
Yes.
that we don't agree, we don't consent,
Yes.
we protest.
Yes.
And in the arbitration of The Hague, the first arbitration, China said, "Oh, you did not protest."
Yeah.
What we did was we showed China, we showed the tribunal, we protested
Yeah.
at every
Hundreds,
moment,
yeah.
hundreds of times. So these protests are very important because if you don't protest, then you waive.
Yeah.
We don't want any waiver. So this is the kahon nito. You have to file it.
Yes.
Next thing is, in the extended continental shelf, if you don't move, don't go to the next step, you don't go to arbitration, nothing will happen. So the issue will remain unresolved. Just imagine if after seizing Scarborough Shoal in 2012, if we did not go to arbitral tribunal,
Yeah.
what would have happened?
We have lost it.
We have lost it already.
Yeah.
To preserve your rights, you must protest and go to the next step. And we can never lose because the law is very clear. UNCLOS is very clear. China cannot claim any maritime zone. It's more than 350 nautical miles away. So we have nothing to lose. We can never lose. We can only win. That's why China dreads, is very afraid that we will file another arbitration case. That gives us a cue as to what we should do.
Okay. Parang giveaway sa atin, no?
Let's give away.
Take your next step. Anyway, sir, I mentioned about the DOJ and the Solgen. They have already, I think, if not, I'm not mistaken, initiated, especially the Solgen, for the damages, destruction of our maritime
Yes,
sources.
the DOJ has announced that they are preparing to file an arbitration case over the destruction of Skoda Shoal or Sabina Shoal. That's well and good.
And they have not taken that step yet.
I don't know what they have done so far.
And that's your advice. Get first a marine.
Yes, that's necessary. We cannot
Man-made
proceed
cause.
without that.
Oo. Okay. Commodore J, have you done your own checking? Kasi Justice was saying, an independent marine expert. On our part, on the Philippine government part, you have mentioned about the UP doing their own study.
Well, We have always been in partnership with the UPMSI and the UP Institute of Biology. We already went in different places in West Philippine Sea, Sandy Cays, Iroquois, Escoda Shoal, and the most recent was last month, wherein we brought marine scientists from UPMSI, and then they also did dive exploration in Escoda Shoal. So with regard to the science of understanding the damages in the West Philippine Sea, that is something that the national government is already doing. As I said, for the Coast Guard or even the Philippine Navy, we do not have the technical expertise to evaluate or assess the impact of the environmental damages that the Chinese government did. So we are relying on our marine scientists to help us in identifying and evaluating the extent of damage that could be used by those government agencies.
Have they officially reported to you as to how much destruction has already been inflicted upon on our shores, on our maritime resources?
Well, we have yet to receive the final report of
So
our marine
when is
scientists who went
due?
to Scotch. I don't want to pressure
Okay.
them, but of course, it takes a lot of time for them to finalize their scientific study. But definitely, once they have submitted that to the Coast Guard and presented that to the National Task Force, it will be something that will be publicized, and of course, we're going to give also the copy to DOJ and the Office of Solicitor General.
But as far as Justice Carpio was saying, it has to be an independent outside the Philippines marine science study.
Well, we can start with ours.
Okay.
If it's confirmed, then we can ask an independent body,
Okay.
just to make our case stronger. But we have to start with our own assessment so that we know how to proceed.
Okay. Si Commodore, di ba, I think last month it happened, yung mga scientists natin, marine scientists were harassed and by the Chinese chopper pa nga, di ba? And there were some physical injury pa nga. So are you providing them security also?
Well, the mere fact that the Coast Guard divers are
with
also
them.
diving
Okay.
with them, and they're also using Coast Guard rigid hull inflatable boat,
Okay.
and the Coast Guard vessels are also within the vicinity. I think that's already enough to give them confidence that we are securing them.
Okay. And the international community, for all the statements that had been issued, especially during the anniversary of the arbitral ruling, we'll start off with Justice. Are you satisfied with all those statements? I am tempted to say, your talk is good, but we need something more concrete. Justice, what's your take on that? Support, during the anniversary, the international, and you were there, the strat-based, you mentioned that about their meeting on the was Philippine Sea anniversary.
Well, we're happy they made those statements of support. Secondly, not only statements of support, they conduct joint patrols with us. So,
Australia,
the
Japan.
joint patrols are one of the strongest enforcement measures of the arbitral award.
Mhm.
Every time the U.S. and its allies conduct joint patrols or conduct freedom of navigation operations and overflight, PUNOCs, in the West Philippine Sea, they're telling China, we can conduct these naval drills, aerial drills, because these waters constitute the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines in accordance with the arbitral award. In the exclusive economic zone, under UNCLOS, we can conduct naval drills.
Yeah.
These are not your waters. You're claiming that this is part of your national territory under the 10-dash line? No. We follow the arbitral award under international law. These are the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, and in the exclusive economic zone, there's freedom of navigation and operation. That's why we are here. So that is the strongest enforcement so far of the arbitral award, and they're doing that regularly, almost every month. There are those of us who say, oh, how can we enforce the arbitral award? It's being enforced. Even as I speak now, it's being enforced. Every time the U.S. and its allies conduct naval drills. That's why I've been saying the Philippine Navy, the Philippine Coast Guard should jointly patrol with our friends, with the U.S. and other allies in the West Philippine Sea, because that is the strongest enforcement. That's telling China, you're claiming this as your waters? No, we are here because this is the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines in accordance with the Arbitral Award. That's enforcing the Arbitral Award. What more can we ask from our friends? Thank you.
Sir, U.S. is specifically stationed carrier, one of its carriers, close to Taiwan because of their interest to Taiwan, but not close enough to the. I think it's also proximity with the Philippines, but they're more focused in Taiwan.
Well, because in the exclusive economic zone, there's freedom of navigation for all countries. So they sail there, we cannot stop them. But we should not stop them because that is, under international law, there is freedom of navigation and overflight.
The last Friday's stock days on the anniversary, you saw all of the ambassadors.
Yes. The ambassadors were there on stage. Those who supported the Arbitral Award, they were all there. So it's an actual support. And they're not only there. Their warships are sailing in the West Philippine Sea. So there is actual, tangible support for the and enforcement of the Arbitral Award.
Okay.
But the final enforcement is, can we get the gas in Reed Bank? That is the final enforcement. Malaysia, they are able to get the gas in their exclusive economic zone. China said, you cannot get the gas. That's within the 10-dash line. But Malaysia sent its drill ship and survey ship, accompanied by its navy, and at the same time, the U.S. and Australian warships were in the same area. So the Chinese Coast Guard could not do anything. The same thing happened in the North Natuna Sea. The Indonesians sent the survey and drill ship there, accompanied by the Navy. At the same time, the U.S. aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan happened to pass by. The Chinese Coast Guard could not do anything. They said, you cannot do that, but they couldn't stop because the U.S. aircraft carrier was there. So the template, how to get the gas, is there. Send our survey and drill ship to Reed Bank, together with our Navy, with a joint patrol with the U.S. That is the template. That's how we can get the gas. That's how Malaysia was able to do it. That's how Indonesia was able to do it. It doesn't matter that China objects or doesn't recognize our exclusive economic zone as long as we get the gas. Because in the exclusive economic zone, what is important is who gets the natural resources. If you get the natural resources, then you are winning. Malaysia is winning, Indonesia is winning, because they had the political will to do it. During the time of President Duterte, he didn't want to displace President Z. He said, I love President Z. But that's over now. We have a new president. He said, we will not give an inch of what belongs to us. So hopefully, we will be sending our survey and drill ship to Reed Bank soon because Malampaya is going dry. Before, Malampaya used to supply our 3 largest gas-fired plants in Luzon. Now it's only supplying 2. By the end of the year, only 1. And by 2027, probably it will be dry. So we really have to get the gas because if we don't get the gas in Reed Bank, we'll have to import LNG, very expensive. LNG is very expensive because you have to transport it. You have to convert natural gas to liquefied gas. It requires energy. When it arrives here, to feed the gas-fired plant, you have to reconvert it from liquid to gas. Another use of energy. It will be 50% more expensive. So it will really be terrible if our economy will be hit hard, really hard, if we have to import LNG. So we must get the gas. It's a matter
Reed Bank is located how many miles
that's within 200 nautical miles.
of our EEZ?
Yes, that's within our EEZ. The tribunal said Reed Bank is part of the EEZ of the Philippines. Without that ruling, no company would go there because China said that's ours. We are saying that's ours. Any company that spends money to drill there needs a ruling, final ruling that the gas belongs to the Philippines. So they wouldn't have gone there, they will not be going there if without that arbitral award. Because China says that's ours, and the Philippines says that's ours. Who is correct? Nobody has, they said, we don't know who's correct. The foreign companies will say, we don't know who's correct. When we got the arbitral award, that gave them confidence that it belongs to us. So they can spend money to go there. That is the value again of the arbitral award. Without that arbitral award, I myself would not spend money to survey because the title of the Philippines is not affirmed. That's why the arbitral award is very important. Thank you.
I think the complicated matters there in the Reed Bank, I think MVP has invested in that. It was entered into during PGMA administration when there was a China ka-partner of MVP. But we took it nga to the Hague, it was put off, and until now, I don't know what's the status of that.
Yeah, we awarded that service contract in Service Contract 72 without the participation of China.
Uh-huh.
It was a foreign company that bid it, but of course, at that time, China wasn't very aggressive yet.
Mhm.
But when China became aggressive, the foreigners got out, and the group of money bought to them, bought them out. And that's when China seized Scarborough Shoal, so there was a moratorium directed by President Aquino because the arbitration was going on. So the moratorium officially continued during the entire time of the Duterte administration, although he lifted it temporarily but reimposed it again. So we really have to get the gas. It's a matter of economic survival for the Philippines.
I'm not aware of the policy of PBBM on that Reed Bank. Are you aware of his policy on that?
Well, there's been no official
Declaration or what?
declaration yet, but I think China knows that we're about to send our survey ship there. That's why China is putting pressure on us on Ayungin Shoal. That's a message to us, do not go to Reed Bank.
Oh.
That is the message.
So,
all
Ayungin is much closer to...
Yeah, it's close now. But it is a message that we can do this to you in Ayungin Shoal.
We can do it also in
We
Reed
can
Bank.
do it in Reed Bank. Because that is the message. All of this is connected. Because at bottom, what is the value of the exclusive economic zone? Natural resources,
Yes.
oil and gas, fish.
Yeah.
It's a battle over this.
Maritime resources. Commodore, I was just taking off from Justice Carpio. The international community had been quietly but doing it through joint patrols. In terms of, I think Coast Guard has been the recipient of many new ships. What is our latest donation or purchases on that? I think they have given ODA even to Coast Guard.
Well, even before we started transparency, wherein we exposed Chinese aggressive action, the Japanese government has been very helpful in developing the capability of the Philippine Coast
Yes.
Guard. And of course, we have to give credit to President Noynoy Aquino because he's actually the first president who approached Prime Minister Abe in 2013, a year after the standoff in Bajo de Masinloc, to support the Philippine Coast Guard for acquisition of 10 44-meter vessels.
Okay.
And these are the vessels that we use now in patrolling in the West Philippine Sea. And then after that, it was followed by the acquisition of 2 more 97-meter vessels. These are Teresa Magbanua and Melchor Aquino.
Japan pa rin yan.
Yes, Japan, which were delivered during the time of former President Duterte.
Okay.
For
Japan.
the French vessels, we have BRP Gabriela Sila and 4 24-meter vessels. Right now, the Australian government is also expressing their support for the capability development of the Philippine Coast Guard. We have to remember the fact that the first 8 Coast Guard vessels of the Philippine Coast Guard, after we were transferred to the DOTR from the Philippine Navy, are all Australian built.
Ayan.
These are the 56 meters and the 35-meter vessel. Now, the Australian Embassy is expressing their interest in supporting the Coast Guard for us to rehabilitate these search and rescue vessels, besides from their intention of providing more Coast Guard vessels for the Philippine government. And then the Japanese government has also supported our capability for maritime domain awareness by through the donation of radars for the Coast Guard as well. In short, the European Union, the German government, has also supported our MDA capability by drones that they have donated to the Philippine Coast Guard.
How many
So,
drones do you have?
Right now, at present, I think there are already 3 drones that came from the German government. So all of this is actually a result of our transparency initiative that we launched since last year, wherein more countries are supporting President Bongbong Marcos in asserting our position in the West Philippine Sea. So right now, we can say that through transparency, we were able to internationalize the issue in the West Philippine Sea for us to get more support, not just for the Coast Guard, but even for the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Yeah.
They were able to deepen their security engagement with not just the United States, but even to other countries that are not our traditional partners.
Yeah.
Five more lines.
When, sir?
Under this, administration, President Bongbong Marcos has approved the acquisition of 5 more 97-meter vessels.
Procurement yan.
Yes,
we were-
these are soft loan, funded by ODA, the
From-
Japanese International Coordinating Agency.
JICA. Okay. Speaking of drones, I read in the social media this morning that there's someone suggested the use of drones for the RORE missions. In the past, we have been using civilians, and last June 17, it turned very aggressive when we used the military. From your viewpoint, Commodore, do we need to go back to the civilian RORE?
With all due respect, ma'am, I don't comment on the resupply operation of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. As I said, the resupply in Ayungin is purely military operation. The Philippine Coast Guard is only asked to support, whether whatever means that they're going to carry out, whether whatever way, chartered supply boat or whatever. The Philippine Coast Guard leadership, Admiral Gaban, expressed his commitment in supporting whatever is needed and necessary for us to sustain our supply operations for BRP Shelaman.
How about the suggestion to use the drones, now that you said you have drones?
Well, as far as the drones are concerned, the drone technology that we have received in the Philippine Coast Guard is only used for us to do MDA capability.
What's that?
For us to, for example, document
MDA, what is MDA?
maritime domain awareness.
Maritime domain.
So this is the reason why even if there are no vessels that we have deployed, we can still document the presence of the Chinese Coast Guard
Okay.
and even the Chinese maritime militia in different parts of the West Philippines.
I had a talk with the ambassador of Canada, and I was told that Canada is providing free, that was several months ago, satellite images to civilian, Coast Guard, and as well as the AFP. Yes, can you?
Yes, the Philippine Coast Guard to the National Maritime Center now, or NMC, and of course we also have our own user lag-in to the dark vessel detection technology of the Canadian government. Through this technology, we can be able to track the vessels even if they're going to turn off their automatic identification system, their AIS. So even if they're going to intentionally turn off such
Yes.
AIS signal using the DVD technology, we can still be able to at least foresee what will be the next track of that vessel.
Is it still pro bono? I mean, is it still free services, satellite services?
Yes, ma'am. It's still free. We're not paying anything to the Canadian government. They're just helping us in
Yes.
countering the illegal presence of the Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese Maritime.
Justice, my last question before I open it to the floor. Do you, you're very aware of this support service, not support service, support and assistance coming from this international community. Are you thinking of championing for the Philippines the WPS to represent us in the arbitral ruling? And in the next step?
Well, I'm retired already, and so, but I give advice. So I give recommendations. So we have young lawyers who can handle this. So we give them the chance. So my role is to advise. Thank you.
But during the Hague, you were there, even.
Yeah, I was there as an observer because as a member of the Supreme Court, I cannot be performing executive functions.
Yeah.
The separation
But
of
now
powers.
that you're retired,
Yeah, that's why I can give advice.
Oh.
I'm willing to give advice to the DOJ or the Solicitor General if requested.
are you not afraid? Because you don't know, you don't have now the luxury of security. And Senator Gatchalian is complaining about death threats now because of his advocacy against POGO. Yesterday, you issued a statement against POGO. You might be the next target.
No, I don't think they will go to that extent.
Anyway, can we just get your feedback? Have you received any feedback from Malacanang about your POGO statement already? That's an open letter.
No feedback yet. But what we are saying is that the PAGCOR must follow its own rules.
Yes.
Because their own rule says that they will grant a license provided you operate, you beam your website, your online presence to a country which allows gambling. And China already said through their embassy, we never allow any kind of gambling. So what are they, why are they giving licenses to these Chinese POGOs who cannot even open their website?
In China?
Yeah, you've heard of this great firewall of China.
Yes.
Okay, Google, YouTube,
It's not
they
fine.
are not available
Yes.
in China because China can block your website.
Yes.
So all these online POGOs
Oh.
claiming to operate in China are blocked. They cannot actually operate in China.
Oh, yes.
So they get a license from PAGCOR saying that we will operate in China, but they are blocked. So what are they doing? What are they actually doing? Like,
Where they actually lay their POGOs, di ba?
yeah, what are they? They build these huge buildings in Pamban, no?
Oh, yes.
And there's a
And employed
little,
so many.
there is a little office there for 3 PAGCOR officials. They don't go there because they're not operating an online gaming for China because they cannot enter. They're not accessible. No Chinese in China can access their website. It's blocked by
Yes.
the Great Firewall. So anong ginagawa ng mga tao niyan? They're huge buildings. There are many people. Well, according to the news reports, they're doing
Other
scamming.
criminal activities.
So
Online scam.
They are using
Scam hubs.
they are using the PAGCOR license as a cover only.
Yes.
Diba?
Unfortunately,
Klaro-klaro?
yeah.
Yeah, because when they were raided, there were no online gaming.
And hundreds of SIM cards, pre-registered SIM cards.
Yes, so the PAGCOR license, just cancel those licenses because linoloko lang tayo, naglolokohan lang tayo. Thank you.
Okay. On that note, I'm opening the floor to your questions. Please identify yourself and your media entity. Okay? Ay, Chino Gaston, nasan ka? Ayun, yun si Chino. O, si Chino na magsimula. Dito. Open na yan, Chino. May delay lang na
Hello,
konti.
hello. Ganun. The question is directed kay Sir Jay. Sir Jay, hindi naman lingid sa kaalaman ng natin at mga opisyal na maraming pumupuna dun sa transparency initiative na kinapipitagan natin, pinagmamalaki natin sa buong mundo, pero may mga certain sectors in society are saying na hindi naman to effective. Kahit yung MDA, yung ating alliance with the US. So, is it effective talaga? Or tama ba yung pananaw na gano'n? Na parang binubunyag natin, wala namang effect dun sa behavior ng China in the first place.
Bad behavior pa rin.
Thank you, Sir Chino, for that very interesting question and very timely. I think, as I was whispering to Justice Carpio, I think the question is wrong. So, the question is, from the very beginning, when we first spoke about transparency last year, I've been mentioning that the Transparency Initiative has two main objectives. The reason why we are launching the Transparency Initiative as approved by the National Security Advisor and supported by a lot of government agencies now are two objectives. Ang tanong, ano ba ang two objectives na yan? The first objective that I have been mentioning since then and now is for us to create awareness among the Filipinos, for the Filipinos to be united against one cause, and that is for us to all stand up against Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea, and for the Filipino people to understand what is at stake in the West Philippine Sea. That's the first objective. The second objective, for President Bongbong Marcos, the other challenge is how can he be able to gain international support if even the Filipino themselves do not understand or do not even know what is happening in the West Philippine Sea. That's why the second objective is for the international community also to understand and to be aware of what's happening up to date in the West Philippine Sea. That's the objective of the Transparency Initiative. It never came to a point that we're saying that the Transparency Initiative is formulated by NTF-WPS to be the single bullet strategy to counter Chinese aggression. But looking back right now, if we're going to stop transparency now, dahil sabihin natin hindi effective in altering the Chinese illegal action, what will bring us now? Wala na tayong pag-uusapan, pabalik na uli ang proliferation ng fake news. There will be no more chance for any ordinary Filipinos to understand what is happening in the West Philippines. Secondly, gaya ng sinabi mo, Sir Chino, a lot of countries in the world are admiring the Transparency Initiative now. That for so many years, we are the only country in Southeast Asia who have chosen to stand up under President Bongbong Marcos to expose Chinese aggression. Kung hihinto natin ito ngayon, ano mangyayari sa atin? Again, the question is wrong. The question is, that should be asked is, have we attained the objectives of the transparency? So my response to that question is, we go back to the objectives of it. We have attained it. The mere fact that more than 80% of Filipinos now support President Bongbong Marcos in our stand in the West Philippine Sea. And more countries now are reaching out to the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard, and a lot of national leaders, even G7, have given a diplomatic community standing up against China's aggression in the West Philippines. It has served its purpose. But again, whether China is going to be affected or alter their behavior in the West Philippine Sea, it's not the Transparency Initiative to be blamed. There are a lot of strategies that we are doing. Diplomatically, we're still engaging them. Militarily, we are still modernizing our armed forces of the Philippines. Economically, every time the president visits different countries, he still chooses to engage different investors for us to be economically resilient. So all of those instruments of national power are still put on the table as a menu of actions for the president in the West Philippine Sea. It is wrong to blame transparency na hindi siya effective, and that is the only silver bullet that would put China's aggression to rest. Thank you.
Follow up lang, sir. Speaking of information and putting it out there and explaining to the Filipinos, there are a lot of anonymous text messages and information about the armed forces of the Philippines. The government itself, there was supposed to have been a walkout during a command conference, and then of course the arbitral award or the filing of the extended continental shelf claim would be actually moot and academic, no? These are information being pushed every day. You think maybe it's part of Chinese propaganda or just simply a play on the upcoming political intramural here?
Well, there are different ways for us to see the intensifying information operation.
Sobrang...
Hello?
Yan. Okay na, sir.
Well, there are different ways for us to interpret this intensifying information operation of the People's Republic of China. But for us, we see it as a way that we can say as a measuring stick to argue that our transparency initiative is really not effective. The mere fact that more trolls now are more trolls now in social media are spreading fake news and disinformation. Ibig sabihin, we are winning the information battle. And ibig sabihin, China has to double up its effort para mas magpalaganap ng maling informasyon. So, for me, as part of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, this is how we see the proliferation of trolls. But not as a way na masasabi natin we are not effective, but the mere fact that they're doubling their efforts means we are effective in providing the factual narrative and the right information to the Filipino people.
Justice Carpio would like to comment.
Yeah, thank you. China has two strategies to win the South China Sea. One, intimidation. We have the largest standing army in the world, the largest naval fleet in the world, the largest Coast Guard in the world, the largest submarine force in the world. Wala kayong laban.
Biggest population in the world.
Just accept the 10-dash line as the national boundary. Intimidation. Si Duterte nagpa-intimidate at saka siya mismo nag-intimidate sa atin. There will be war if we get the gas in Reed Bank. Magkakagera. Kaya hanggang ngayon hindi natin nakukuha. Pag magpapa-intimidate ka. The second strategy of China is disinformation. Katulad ng sinabi ni Chino na the generals walk out of a command conference. Today, naglabas yung spokesperson ng AFP, fake news. China is using disinformation. Like, sabi nila, wala naman nangyayari dyan sa arbitral award. Hindi naman nakikinig ang China. What did Wu Shikun say? Wu Shikun, the guru of China on the South China Sea, he was the one who convinced the Chinese leadership to claim everything within the 10-dash line, hindi lang yung isla. Because the Kuomintang claimed only the islands within the 9-dash line. Pinalaki ni Wu Shikun. Si Wu Shikun mismo nagsabi, recently, sabi niya, the arbitral award has a negative impact on China that can never be erased. That's why we must stop the Philippines from filing another arbitration case. Takot na takot sila. Although ang propaganda nila, we never accept that. That's a piece of paper. But they know the effect. The world is rallying behind the arbitral award. Of course, propaganda nila, baliwala sa amin yan, we don't care. But they deep down, alam nila, it has an impact that can never be erased. Dapat hintuin natin ng Pilipinas, wag magsampa uli ng another arbitration case. Magsampa tayo. That is disinformation. So, they really know na natamaan sila, but they will not accept it. So, it's for us to say, wala, ano yan, nagpapakitang tao lang yan, but they are hurting inside. They are in dread of another arbitration case. Because if we file another arbitration case, talo na naman sila, the world will support us again. They will be isolated. So, let us be mindful of this disinformation. Intimidation and disinformation, yun ang ginagamit ng China against us. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Ryan Lacanlalan, sir, from UNTV. To Justice Carpio, sir. Sir, what is your thought or insight about the recent signed agreement to open direct line of communication between China and Philippine President to avoid clash in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, actually, we had already a hotline. No? Our Department of Foreign Affairs had a hotline with their ministry. But when we called them up on several incidents, they did not answer. So they will answer only at the time of their choosing. So it's useless. So, well, we can try another hotline, president to president, but we cannot be assured that if we call, they will be there to answer. Now, you have to take this with a grain of salt. Because on the ground, what happened was we called them during an incident, and they did not answer. You can Google it. It's there in the news. Thank
You mean you personally called
No, DFA.
DFA?
The DFA, because there was an incident, so the DFA called them up. They never answered. They will answer when they think it's time to answer.
Yeah,
So
napapansin
that
ko nga.
hotline, it's not a hotline.
Di ba they were supposedly, they called the ambassador, but the ambassador never showed that. Not even to PBBM, who said he will call ambassador sila, but nothing was heard of after that.
Well, but we can go through the motions. Okay, let's open hotline, but we know, don't think that this is a positive development. No, take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Sir, isa pa. Do you think the Marcos administration heading the right direction in the when it comes in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, so far, yes. I think I'm very happy. As I said, it's music to my ears, and we're doing the right thing so far. Thank you.
Ito may phone-in question na si Mads Villar ng Net25. Commodore Tarriela, since August 2023, ilan na po ang naitalang bullying incident ng China Coast Guard sa West Philippine Sea? I think as far as Coast Guard is concerned yan. Dami na siguro niyan. August.
If we're going to count it, parang I lost the count. Pero since August, I think the most notable ones are always related sa kapag meron tayong resupply operation. So every time that there is a supply operation, we're always subjected to dangerous maneuver and even water cannoning, no? Then we also had Bajo de Masinloc. So I'm sorry, I cannot respond to the actual number, but the mere fact that you can Google it by month nga eh.
How about sa fishermen na naharas, na ano?
For the Filipino fishermen, the first news that we released in 2024, that was January, wherein Filipino fishermen were harassed and they were even asked to return yung mga shell na kinuha nila sa Bajo de Masinloc.
Oo.
I think that was like second or third week of January.
Oh, na-return ba naman?
Yes, they were even asked to go outside dun sa kasi ano nun eh low tide sa BDM. They were asked to leave the area and return the shells that they have gathered. So that's the first time in 2024.
Yung sa June 17 incident, yung dinidiman natin yung return ng mga kinuwang rifles and the pakpak. Naisoli ba yun, sir?
Ma'am, I won't comment on the
Anong natin kay Roy?
AFP or DND.
Kay Commander Roy Trinidad.
Ma'am,
Okay.
sundutin ko lang ho yung tanong ni Miss Mads kay Commodore Tarriela, sir. Sir, sa pagkakaalala nyo, ngayong taon na nangyari yung mga pinaka malalang aggression ng China sa atin?
I think for this year, this is the most aggressive action of the Chinese Coast Guard towards the Philippine Coast Guard and even the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Against the Coast Guard, because this was also the first time that we had experienced a direct hit jet stream water cannon against our vessel when we patrolled in Bajo de Masinloc last May. And then the June 17 incident wherein the Chinese Coast Guard on board the Reeve also prevented our supply operation to be successfully completed.
Okay. May follow-up?
Hi, sir. Michael Deliso, sir, sa ABS-CBN. Sir, hingi lang ako ng more information dun sa CCG 5303. Nag-radio challenge tayo sa kanila and sumagot ba sila ng intention po nila?
Well, regarding the Chinese Coast Guard 5303, the same thing, the usual. Whenever you challenge them, they're also going to challenge our presence back. So, but the mere fact that the Chinese Coast Guard is no longer within the vicinity of Lubang Island is already a positive development when we deployed our 97-meter vessel.
Ano daw intention nila, sir? Wala pa.
So far, we haven't gotten any tangible response.
Pero may activity po ba tayo dun sa may Lubang Island? Kasi I understand, nagkaroon ng earlier advisory na may Philippine-US exercise po doon ng Coast Guard.
I won't comment on that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
May comment? May comment? May tanong? Ahead. Ay, sige. Meron? Okay. Please introduce yourself.
Hi sir, Henry from Your TV. Follow-up lang sir, ito sa question kanina. Sabi niyo nag-radio challenge po kayo sa CCG 5901. Did you get any answer on that sir? And ano po yung reason ba't sila nandun? And gaano nakatagal po yung monster ship sa Skoda Shoal? Thank you sir.
The Coast Guard Monster Ship 5901, our earliest monitoring when she anchored inside Skoda Shoal is July 3. So it has become a periodic thing on board 9701 to challenge their presence almost every hour kapag nakikita namin may ginagawa sila. But the same thing, as I said, they're also going to challenge us back and then claim sovereignty also in Skoda Shoal. Again, it's not just sovereign rights that they're claiming. The weird part is that whenever they challenge us of this China Coast Guard monster ship, they're even claiming that they have full sovereignty in Skoda Shoal.
Ito may question lang from phone in from our reporter Gio Ong na late dumating. For Commodore J, reaction on Senate President Chis Escudero's suggestion to have only one spokesman for WPS issues. Do statements from AFP, PCG, and National Security Council dependent on the scope of the 2016 arbitral ruling? The context was during that lecture of National Library last July 4, Justice Carpio and DOJ's attorney Freddy Ganchon said the maritime dispute in South China Sea has been resolved, but territorial dispute has not been settled. Perhaps CJ muna, sir.
Regarding the comment of Senator Chis Escudero as the Senate President, I would just like to reiterate the guidance of our chairman of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, General Eduardo Año, when we first launched the Transparency Initiative last year. Our intention of having multiple voices with one message is for us to make the public more understand what is really happening in the West Philippine Sea. For example, in my case, I'm only the spokesperson of the Coast Guard for Coast Guard operations. So I can fully detail what are the operations that we're conducting, what are the deployment that we have. And the same thing with the DFA. Every time we have this joint press conference, the DFA is in the position to express the official statement of the Department of Foreign Affairs to put into the detail what are those diplomatic actions that they're going to carry out immediately after a certain incident. The same thing with the Armed Forces of the Philippines. The AFP, whenever they joined the joint press con, they also discuss the AFP operation in that particular incident. But all of us are synchronized in a way that our objective is only to have one message. So, as far as NTF-WPS is concerned, and with the guidance of the National Security Advisor, multiple voices with one message is our objective of this transparency. The only problem of having multiple voices is that if you're not going to have a synchronized messaging. But as far as NTF-WPS is concerned, whenever we have our joint press conference, we haven't failed to have a synchronized message. Our messaging, whether it's Jonathan Malaya or me or the DFA spokes or the AFP spokesperson, are all in line and complements each other's message.
I'm surprised. I'm quite surprised when you said NSA Anyo had that guidance on you, because when during AFP Chief of Staff si General Anyo, he is the guy na no talk, no mistake. When he became DILG, the same principle applied. And up to now, as NSA, no talk, no mistake. He lets his underlings speak for himself. The only time I was able to interview him was via Zoom, because he was required by Senator Ping Lacson to talk with him on the one of the pet bills of Senator Ping Lacson. I think it's security related.
But
Kaya na-surprise ako, sabi mo.
yes, ma'am. But again, if there's one person that we need to recognize and give credit on the handling of the transparency initiative of the National Task Force, that will be our National Security Advisor, Jan Eduardo Año. He is
Okay.
the one who have allowed us to
Okay.
have joint pressure with the main objective of many voices with one message.
Justice Carpio, yung sinasabi na yung sa just July 5, yung
Thank you. There are two disputes in the South China Sea, the maritime dispute and the territorial dispute. The maritime dispute between China and the Philippines have been settled with finality with respect to two things. One, the 9-dash line. The 9-dash line cannot serve as a legal basis to claim any maritime areas. Two, the Philippines has a full 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone from its archipelagic baselines, excluding, of course, those island territories and their territorial sea that are in dispute. So yun yung dalawa. Final na yan. The arbitral award is final and binding because there's no appeal. And all the rest of the world recognize it except for China. Now, the territorial dispute, there is no arbitral tribunal that has compulsory jurisdiction. If we want to sue China over the territorial dispute, we have to go to the ICJ, and ICJ will ask China, do you consent to be sued? And China will always say, no, we don't consent to be sued. So ICJ will say, sorry, we have no jurisdiction because China refuses. As to the territorial dispute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Specific yun, specific incidents. Okay. Pero sir, by way of a joke na lang dahil when you always attack WPS, you stand on WPS, he will say, you look like a Vietnamese. Because Vietnamese is repelling any Chinese aggression, di ba? Hindi ko narinig ka na rebutted, on that.
Ako, pag nasa Japan ako, akala nila Japanese ako. Pag sa Vietnam ako, akala nila Vietnamese ako. Pag sa China ako, akala nila Chinese ako. Pag sa Pilipino ako, akala nila Chinese ako.
Pero di ba, Vietnam has been really consistent in its defense of its own sovereign and territorial claims in WPS.
Yes, Vietnam has been very fierce in defending its maritime zones. But don't forget, during the arbitration at The Hague, Vietnam sent a letter to the tribunal saying that we support the position of the Philippines. The ambassador was talking to me at that time, said that the Politburo was deciding whether to intervene or just to send a letter. Alam mo, Vietnam has very long land border with
Yes.
China.
Yes.
So China will just cross.
Yeah.
So they're very
Calculating din sila.
very careful about it. But they had to say something. That's why they sent that letter. We actually support the Philippines. In fact, when the arbitral award came out on July 12, 2016, there were more celebrations in Hanoi than in Manila. Because for them, the invalidity of the 9-dash line was crucial. Because with the 9-dash line, they are actually landlocked. They have no, after their territorial sea, they cannot get out anymore. Because the Chinese said the 9-dash line, now the 10-dash line, is the boundary of China. So they cannot go out because they are enclosed by the boundary of China. So for them, they were really happy that the 9-dash line was declared as invalid to claim maritime zones.
Unfortunately, Malaysia has opposed our extended continental shelf over the Saba naman.
Well, also, well, that opposition, Vietnam also opposed us because there is an overlap. If you don't oppose, then you waive your claim. So everybody had to oppose. But China, so we should understand why they are opposing, because if they don't oppose, they waive even their claim, because there is really an overlap. In the overlap in the extended continental shelf, it will be divided equally. So if they don't oppose, they will lose that, their equal part.
Yung kanilang sinasabi, no,
Oo.
dapat nag-wave ka, wala ka na.
Yes, so you have to, so it's a friendly opposition. But yung China, iba, because they don't have an overlapping ang layo nila.
So it will help our case extended continental
Yes,
shelf.
actually, Vietnam and Malaysia submitted a joint claim to the extended
Okay.
continental shelf in
Oo.
2009.
Oh,
And they invited us to join.
oh.
But at that time, sabi ng DFA, baka may conflict with Sabah.
Oo.
Sabi naman ng UP Law Center, ang territory of the Sultan of Sulu faced the Celebes Sea and the Sulu Sea.
Oh.
Hindi naman, it didn't face the South China Sea. So there is no conflict. But recently, according to our NAMRIA, may konting sliver. Makikita mo from the territory of the Sultan of Sulu, one of the islands, it goes straight to the South China Sea. Napakaliit.
I-wave na lang natin.
So, sinama natin yon. Well, actually, if you, kasi pag nag-overlap, hatiin yun. Siguro pag hinati yun, talagang wala
Sliver
na
lang.
yun. So, but anyway, it's there just to preserve our claim. But it's, there is what we call in law, de minimis. It's so minimal that you can forget about it. But we just want to register. No? So actually, we don't have a problem with Vietnam and Malaysia, because with Malaysia it's de minimis. With Vietnam, talagang may overlap naman. So it will just be divided equally. Equal means equitably, actually, depending on the length of your coastline. May formula yan eh. I mean, it's a technical formula. It's automatic, di kahon yun.
Pero wala pa tayo, di pa napapile yung extended continental shelf natin.
At that time.
Oo.
Ngayon, pinail na natin, but I'm not worried about Vietnam and Malaysia kasi may formula yan eh. But itong China, wala naman sila. They're not entitled to join the party. Ang layo nila eh. So what we do, now that China has filed its claim, we bring them to the tribunal. Na ang layo ninyo. And the tribunal will say, oh, ang layo ninyo. Hindi kayo, you cannot claim more than 350 nautical miles. Tama na yun. Panalo na tayo doon. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, son.
Good morning po, Good Justice, Commodore. Earl Tobias, IBC News 13. Good Justice, tanong ko lang po, how much of, paano masosolidify pa nitong kinocall natin na panibagong arbitration case yung nauna na nating tribunal award? When it comes to
Well, in addition to the extended continental shelf claim, if you arbitrate that, we can also file sa Scarborough. Remember, sa Scarborough, the tribunal said it's a common fishing ground of Vietnamese, Chinese, and Filipino. Pag common fishing ground, there must be common rules. Hindi naman pwede mandando ang China, kami lang makapunta doon, kami lang makapasok sa lagoon. Dehado tayo. So that's why I've been saying, let us invite China to sit down, Vietnam to sit down with us on what are the common rules. China, of course, will not sit down with us. Vietnam may sit down with us. Then we go now to the tribunal. It's a tribunal, sabi ninyo, common fishing ground, pero tinataboy kami ng China, hindi kami nakakapasok sa lagoon. Yun ang pinaka-importante. Can you provide us, can you lay down the ground rules on common fishing? Ito yung suggestion namin.
Hindi ba within EEZ, 200 EEZ and
Hindi,
Scarborough?
kasi yung sa EEZ natin, 200, but may mga pockets dyan of territory na outside. Yung Scarborough Shoal, it's outside our EEZ. Kasi territory yun above water at high tide, may territorial sea
Kaya
yun.
common fishing ground.
So, we can do that. Hindi naman sisipot ang China eh. So, the tribunal will most probably accept a recommendation. May award na naman tayo, doon takot ang China. Pag may award, that means yung kanilang claim 9-9, timbuk na naman. Will be
Pusoy
overruled.
na naman siya.
So, that's how we pile up awards and awards. And the world will keep supporting us because we are following the rule of law.
Rules-based.
So Justice, the claim would be,
Rules-based international order.
the claim would be sa Pilipinas ang Scarborough Shoal, but then we're going to set definite rules for it to be a common fishing ground para walang inkwentro.
No, we go to the arbitral tribunal under UNCLOS. It will lay down the common ground rules.
Your thoughts na lang din, Justice, nung nakaraang linggo si former Good Justice Hardeleza, from what I understood is gusto naman din niyang nagko-call naman din siya na mag-file ng another case but more focusing as a damage case.
Well, on Skoda Shoal, yung katulad nga sinabi ni Commodore J na there was destruction of the coral reef, no? And makita naman natin, I'm in favor of that, but one requirement there is that there must be a marine scientific assessment.
Independent.
Who really what caused the damage?
Man-made.
Because it can be caused by a typhoon, by a storm, by a tsunami. Kasi wala namang eyewitness eh. So, how can you prove it? Parang pumupunta ka sa husgado, judge,
Sinira niya eh.
we have to get a marine scientific assessment. That's basic. So, until we have that, we cannot move forward.
Kasi ang mention ni former Justice Hardeleza rin ay yung katulad nung nawala ng daliri. Hindi raw kasi mapepresyuhan yung mga ganong bagay kasi parang sabi niya nga how much is a finger. Parang ang hirap magbigay ng ng value. So kapag tao po at damage sa ating mga gamit tulad nung ayaw bayaran ng China 60 million na damage.
Well, may problema dyan. When in the arbitral tribunal sa Hague, we included Ayungin Shoal. Sabi natin, the Chinese blocked our resupply, conducted dangerous maneuvers. Sabi naman ng tribunal, military activity yan because you're resupplying a military vessel. Under UNCLOS, because China opted out of military activity for compulsory arbitration, we have no jurisdiction. So, if we go to the tribunal now, na pinutol yung daliri ng one of our soldiers, walang jurisdiction. Kasi military activity, may ruling na dyan eh. That's why my proposal is we convert the presence in Ayungin Shoal from military to civilian. Magtayo tayo ng lighthouse operated by the Coast Guard. Coast Guard substation will station there 2 vessels. We'll put up a UP Marine Science Institute center there operated by the UP Marine Science
Skoda.
Institute. Civilian yan. We will announce it to the world. And then, magpapadala tayo ng materials now for construction. Hihintuin tayo. We will be blocked by the Chinese. Takbo na tayo ngayon sa arbitral tribunal. Under UNCLOS, we have exclusive right to put up that lighthouse, those Coast Guard facilities. Civilian yan eh. Any civilian structure we can put up, we can erect on Ayungin Shoal because that's our EEZ. Then the tribunal will say, oh, may jurisdiction na kami dyan because that's a civilian activity. Yun ang problema natin ngayon. Anything we do for Sierra Madre is a military activity. The tribunal will not assume jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. That's not from me. On lighter news lang po, Commodore. Just asking your thoughts or statements lang po. Statement lang po sa pagsali ni First Lady Liza Marcos sa PCG Auxiliary po.
Well, of course, the Philippine Coast Guard is very happy about it. Imagine the First Lady of our republic is joining the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary as one of our volunteers, no? And she was also accorded a 3-star admiral rank of Coast Guard Auxiliary. We see it as a support from the first family, recognizing the effort of the Philippine Coast Guard as we perform our patriotic duty in the West Philippine Sea. So, having the First Lady wear the same uniform that we wear, is really something that will boost the morale of our Coast Guard sailors deployed in the West Philippines.
For both gentlemen, can we deploy the First Lady as the face of the West Philippine Sea? Just for ceremonial effects lang.
Well, Coast Guard Auxiliary, ma'am, are volunteers, no?
Yes.
And they are not actually deployed in actual Coast Guard
Kapag
operation.
volunteer.
Yes. So,
Hindi,
they are,
pasakayin lang sa BRP Skoda. Telescope.
they are supporting different functions like coastal cleanup, humanitarian assistance.
Safe, okay.
Yes,
Justice,
that
what can you comment about that? The First Lady at the Coast Guard, 3-star pala.
Well, I congratulate her because she will outrank me. 1 star lang ako sa auxiliary.
Sa Coast Guard. Oh, 1 star. Okay. Welcome to the club. Dapat pala ito ipadala natin. Ceremonial, di ba? Symbolic. The champion of WPS. What can you say about that?
Sabi nga ni Commodore J, kami clean up lang kami.
Okay, Felix.
Commodore and Chief Felix Labang from DCME. May mga opinion po yung mga mangingisda na naglalayag po sa West Philippine Sea. Why not include it sa the target daw? Yung pagkakaroon daw natin itong BRP Sierra Madre, why not exclude it sa one target daw na areas na isama sa Build program, yung creating to also artificial island at for structure at para ito'y magamit bilang salita na magpakita ng lakas sa atin, which is natutoy nakalagay naman sa West Philippine Sea.
So, malalim yan. Justice Carpio ba? Fishermen, yung mga fisher folks. Katulad ng China.
Suggestion po ng mga mangingisda doon para magpakita ng lakas sa atin. Sa West Philippine Sea, yung mga naglalayag din po mga mangingisda.
Well, what we can do is
Reclamation na bagay.
we have the exclusive right to put up structures in our exclusive economic
Sinabi niya nga,
zone.
yung watch.
So pwede rin tayo maglagay ng fisherman shelter. But ang problema sa Baho de Masinloc, that's above water at high tide hindi EEZ yan So,
The Scarborough Shoal.
The Scarborough Shoal, sa Baho de Masinloc. Pwede tayo magtayo sa Ayungin Shoal. That's EEZ natin yan. Instead of a marine scientific, or in addition to a marine science center, marine scientific research center, magtayo tayo ng fisherman shelter. Pwede rin. Civilian yan.
Po. Just
Ito ako, last question kay Commodore Tarriela, kung wala na, yung suggestion ni Justice Carpio for the Coast Guard to put up lighthouses, ano pa ba, sir? Lighthouse and fishermen, substation, Coast Guard.
Well, BRP Sierra Madre is active commissioned Navy vessel in Ayungin Shoal. So, I don't want to push for
Military station yan. How about sa Scarborough, yung sa fishing na lang? Yung sa within yung...
in the UNPED.
Did,
So, for my comment for BRP Sierra Madre, I respect the authority of the Armed Forces of the Philippines because that's a commissioned Navy vessel, BRP Sierra Madre.
Pero sa Skoda, meron tayong, di bang, yung BRP natin doon?
BRP Teresa Magbanwa. The
Di man
largest
nato.
Coast Guard vessel.
Hindi naman necessary to ditch there, pero permanently station siguro.
Well, I think permanent station is not also applicable to Teresa Magbanwa.
Okay.
It still patrol the area of Escoda Shoal. It's only the Chinese government that is claiming that we have permanently positioned BRP Teresa Magbanwa in Escoda Shoal. They have forgotten the fact that in our Coast Guard inventory, Teresa Magbanwa is the most expensive Coast Guard vessel for us. So we cannot afford ditching Teresa Magbanwa there. So I'm not saying that, what I'm saying now is that the BRP Teresa Magbanwa 9701 is not a permanent station. It's still operational. it still patrols the immediate vicinity of Scota Shoal.
And it means a lot of resources, gasoline, the food, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you get your gasoline? You have to sail back pa, di ba?
Well, the Coast Guard vessels, the 44-meter vessels, also support the logistical requirement
okay.
of
Answer
Teresa,
din,
ma'am.
okay. Okay,
Last na lang po. Sir, are you aware of the China issued daw navigational warning barring entry into some waters
yeah.
of South China Sea?
That was my
Due
first
to the
question.
sorry.
Oo.
Ano response niyo doon, sir?
Well, as I said, no, even without those warning, they have been doing military exercises naman before pa. So I don't really know what's their point of having
Announcing it.
that kind of announcement now. Because 3 months ago, they have been doing amphibious exercise in Scottish Shoal, even without notifying the Philippine government.
Pero wala pa kayong reports na nahuhuli silang Pilipino, ano?
Yes. As of this time, since they have implemented
Nakunod,
their
oo.
new so-called China Coast Guard regulation, there were still no reports. That,
Because you responded with a warning, do that and you will see what will happen. Di ba? Meron kayong ganun warning in so many words. Anyway, no? Last question?
Oo. So na expectation lang, Justice, next week na po yung sona ng mahal na Pangulo. Any expectation from your end, or what would you like to hear from the
Do you
President?
expect any WPS mention? Anong policy declaration na you wish he will say on the WPS?
Well, I really don't know what the president will say. I cannot predict. Well, he probably will reiterate that we will enforce the arbitral award. We will not give up a square inch of Philippine territory that we have sovereignty over in the West Philippine Sea. But of course, if we file another arbitration case, it will not be announced. Thank you.
Yung sa POGO, ano ni-expect mo siya magsasalita sa POGO?
Well, the POGO, probably it would be good if we can announce that since it's against the rules of PAGCOR to issue licenses to POGOs that cater to the Chinese mainland market, it's good if he will say that he has directed PAGCOR to cancel all the licenses of POGOs that cater to the Chinese market because China prohibits gambling.
Tsaka yung mga economic cluster niya already said the socio-economic costs far outweigh
Yes.
the POGO revenue.
Yeah. It's it doesn't really compute, no? Because first of all, how can the Chinese POGOs operate in mainland China when gambling is banned, illegal in China? Linoloko natin sarili natin when we issue the license. We know it cannot be used. So why are they getting that license? Because they want to put up a building. We are a POGO, we operate in China, but if you go inside, they're doing other things. Thank you.
Baka doon na yung firewall ng China, doon sa disinformation and trolls, di ba? Nasa loob na natin. Anyway, on that note, I would like to ask our respective gentlemen to give their closing remarks. We start with Commodore J. Tarriela, please.
Thank you very much. Again po, on the part of the Coast Guard, and as a member agency, the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, ang ating pong komandante, Lord Van, has been committed in supporting the commitment, no, of our president of not surrendering a square inch of our territory to any foreign power. That's why even if we have a very limited number of Coast Guard vessels, we are strategically deploying our vessels to make sure that we can assert our position in the West Philippine Sea. And then secondly, when we, as you know, Transparency Initiative has been one of our most important strategy in the West Philippine Sea. I would like to reiterate our main intention is to educate the Filipino people and to make the Filipino people united against our fight in the West Philippine Sea. Second is to gain international support from the international community. For those who are disappointed to see na ang China daw hindi pa rin nagbabago ng action despite of the reputational cost that it is incurring because of our transparency and saying na it is not effective. I think, again, we go back to the main objectives of which, and it's not to be the silver bullet to address our concern in the West Philippine Sea. Naniniwala pa rin po tayo through the National Security Advisor and the WPS Chairman Jay Eduardo Año that the right information that we are providing to the Filipino people is an obligation to of the Philippine government para sa ating lahat, maintindihan natin ano ang pinaglalaban natin sa West Philippine Sea, bakit natin ito pinaglalaban, at sino ang kalaban natin dito. Hindi tayo lahat bilang Pilipino. And then, our other objective of which is also to make the Filipino understand na ang laban ng West Philippine Sea ay hindi lamang laban ng administrasyon ng Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. We are very lucky na ngayon sa administrasyon na to, President Bongbong Marcos has been very supportive in our efforts in the West Philippine Sea. Our end goal of transparency is to make sure that all of the next generation Filipinos will still understand what are we fighting for. I'm not saying na in the next remaining years of President Bongbong Marcos ay magkakaroon na tayo ng solusyon or we are going to end up victorious in our fight in the West Philippine Sea, but definitely not going to war. Our main objective here is for us to hold the line so that the next generation of Filipinos will understand and to continue the fight that we have. We are just continuing in protecting our sovereignty. Maraming salamat.
Thank you po, Commodore Justice.
Thank you, Marichu. Just two things. I'm always for the rule of law, that we follow the rule of law. So in the South China Sea, let's follow the rule of law and bring China to an UNCLOS tribunal on the extended continental shelf claim. By doing that, we are following the rule of law. Domestically, we should also follow the rule of law. Our rule of law says we can only issue a POGO license if that POGO operates in a country where gambling is allowed. Let's follow that, because in China, gambling is not allowed. So let's cancel all the POGO licenses issued to Chinese POGOs.
Not
Thank you.
necessarily all.
Not necessarily all. I'm saying only licenses issued to POGOs that claim to operate in the Chinese market. Not all. Because there might be some POGOs that cater to the Taiwanese market. And maybe Taiwan does not outlaw gambling, no? So only the Chinese market, because the Chinese embassy has come out with a clear statement. We do not allow any kind of gambling or gaming.
And they
in China.
reiterate their appeal to the Philippine
Yeah,
government.
they appealed. This is actually the second time they appealed. Sabi nila, ano ba kayo? Follow the rule of law. So let's follow the rule of law. Thank you.
On that note, I would like to thank our guests, special guests for this week. We can only salute them for leading the way to on our sovereign rights at WPS. See you again next week. Please accept our offer and 9 minutes na kami. 9 minutes na kami. Ito yung mug and cellphone also.